There's a call for military training to be an option for the unemployed.
At least 200,000 New Zealand children will be directly affected by the government's intended cuts in benefits.
Today, the Parliamentary Select Committee considering the legislation heard something of the misery that will accumulate behind that saving.
Education outcomes, health outcomes, and live in poverty for much longer.
Welfare fraud is being targeted at a much more frequent level by authorities than tax evasion.
People who receive a benefit are able to do so only because others are going to work every day.
More unemployed people competing for jobs was bound to drive wages down.
We shouldn't need Auckland Action Against Poverty to run workshops.
We believe in a welfare system that supports people when they are most in need, encourages people to get back into work, and occasionally gives people a kick in the pants when they're not taking responsibility for themselves, their family, and other taxpayers.
And what about Materia Ture declaring that she ripped the system off?
She should be investigated and she should be prosecuted like everyone else.
So this cruel, penal welfare system has been growing now for nearly 30 years.
What we saw from actually the late 1980s, so actually under a Labour government, was a shift to focusing policy on the unemployed themselves as being the cause of unemployment. And what that justified was, in part, some training, but more importantly, sanctions, work tests, lots of things that have made the system more punitive.
9 times out of 10 I do get it because I fight for it. But then I get a letter a couple of weeks later saying that this has been cut and this has been cut, and I think, well, no, not right now, mate, you know, and off I go again, and I make an appointment. They've cut me twice without telling me, so I've rung them up and I've walked in there and they said, you can't do a walk-in. I says, well, I am here now, I want my, I want my money. A measly $106 means a lot to me, and I want it. And I normally get it, but that's not without a fight.
It's the stories of whānau, men and women taking care of their kids as best as they can and struggling on poor wages and low benefits.
The benefit levels are so low, they're completely unlivable.
And we do know that there are people now who don't even go to WINZ. They are willing to live on the street or just put up with, couch surfing or whatever, because it is just so stigmatising, such a demoralising process to kind of go along to WINZ and be treated as if you're not even really a human.
It's a very negative environment. It's also very public, and the beneficiary has to get used to like being interviewed in a warehouse with hundreds of other people around.
It's definitely a feeling of humiliation when I do go into a WINZ office, and that's solely because of the opinions and stigmas around people on the benefit.
Sick of being called a bludger. I'm told many, many times to get a job, and I'm thinking, I have got a job, I'm sick of that.
When it comes to benefit recipients, particularly the unemployed, we can see a decline in support.
When we have more universal policies with welfare, when welfare and housing had a more universal base to the policy, people were less likely to be critical of it because more people had access to it.
So prior to the kind of late 1980s, governments worked along a kind of Keynesian economic management model. They saw unemployment has been caused by structural factors. So things that the government did or things that happened in the economy more broadly. And so policies reflected that. Governments took responsibility for creating work.
In 2013, MSD took over the allocation and the assessment of social housing, and During that same time, state housing started being called social housing, which was a very particular political choice to change those words because housing was being rolled back from the state. And so as soon as MSD took over housing, it became a lot more punitive. We saw a lot more people being evicted and then denied access to housing.
We used to be a community here full of good people, and now we're just cleanliness. The homes that used to be here were homes, and they're gone now.
My name's Alistair Russell. I'm the Advocacy Coordinator with Auckland Action Against Poverty.
My name's Vanessa Cole. I'm currently the Coordinator of Auckland Action Against Poverty.
We are explicitly anti-capitalist in our understanding of why poverty exists.
Poverty in this country is not a choice of the individual, but it is a political and economic choice of the people in power.
I want to start with two fundamental truths. The first is that unemployment is not created by the unemployed. Currently, we have a welfare system based on the lie that unemployed people choose to be unemployed. The lie that unemployed people are all drug users. The lie that there is plenty of work available and that work will get you out of poverty. Unemployment is created by decisions made in business boardrooms and by decisions made by the government.
We had someone come into Auckland Action Against Poverty who had been made to sign a contract with a recruitment company inside a work and income office under the threat of being sanctioned.
They were signing contracts which did not guarantee them any hours of work, any paid conditions, anything at all. The contracts were illegal. When we approached Manpower, they initially chose to lie to us about the contracts.
So we occupied the office to demand that they stop exploiting beneficiaries.
When we see that there is a clear injustice that can be addressed through a collective action, we will do that. On Fridays, we're at Clendon and Manarewa work and income offices. We will see a total of 130 people each Friday.
When we moved to Clendon, we started seeing lines of people outside of work and income before we arrived. After this started happening for a while, the business association out there started being upset about the fact that there was a line of people outside of work and income, and the cops were called, and the cops were there trying to trespass advocates from assisting people to get their full and legal entitlements. And when the cops arrived on that day, it was made clear that Work and Income had called the cops.
We're not given the opportunity to leave our office without us trespassing them.
How long are you going to persist with this today?
Till we've seen everybody, the 65, 70 people that are here.
The toxic culture within Work and Income kills people.
A poor man can go and be rich and then go back to being poor because they know what it's like, but a rich person cannot go from being rich to poor. Cannot handle it.
I think they would struggle to perhaps live on a benefit, which is literally, a few $1,000s a year and really not very much money.
We need to increase benefit levels, and we need to create a system that's based on redistribution of wealth.
I hope by the time my kids, and my grandchildren, things hopefully will be better for them. That's all I'm asking.